Now I'd like to introduce the idea of conductors versus an insulator, right? So a conductor, a good conductor, something that allows the flow of electricity, right? Which is what a conductor does. It just like a train conductor, moves a train along. An electrical conductor moves electricity along, and a good conductor usually has fewer than 4 electrons in its valence, or fewer than 4 valence electrons. So you can see this outer shell with 32. If you imagine that there is only 4 or 3 or 2, those electrons out there are kind of lonely, right? And they're not really stable, and they're not glued to this nucleus very well, right? So these free electrons that are out here that are floating around allow the electricity to flow. And that's what a conductor is, right? And you already know of things that are good conductors. Copper, gold, silver, most metals are good conductors of electricity and allow it to flow. Right? These free electrons are not locked into this orbit around this nucleus and can be forced to move from atom to atom. Let's look at some conductors, right? So, right, we had mentioned aluminum and copper and metal, and if you look at aluminum, you'll see that it only has 3 little valence electrons that are moving out here. Copper wire, copper only has 1 electron in its valence shell. Silver has only 1 electron in its valence shell. And if you look, it's in a shell that's even further out. Silver is a better conductor than copper. Copper is a better conductor than aluminum. Let's look at gold, right? You think about gold-plated connectors sometimes for your phone or for a PC or for, if you go to the store and you look, you'll see gold connectors. Well, there's not much gold in them, but they are gold-plated. Gold has only 1 valence electron way out in its shell. And so gold is one of the best conductors. But most metals only have a few valence electrons in their outermost shell, right? So that's a conductor that moves things along. How do we contain electrons? And if we start to think about insulators, an insulator, just like insulation in your house, right? Insulation is what prevents the flow of electricity, prevents the flow of electrons. And if that outer shell of an atom is filled, right, then it's a very stable. And oftentimes it's not even an atom, but it's a compound, which is a collection of different kinds of atoms, right, that are very stable. And if we look at carbon is electrically stable. It has 4 valence electrons. They're close to the nucleus, and they are very stable, right? So that's a filled outer shell, right, with few valence electrons, 4 or more, tend to be a good insulator. Let's look at what insulators and conductors, right? So conductors that allow the flow of electricity, most of metals, aluminum, gold, silver, copper, mercury. Mercury is liquid at room temperature, but it's a metal and it allows flow. Iron. Water does conduct electricity, and yes, don't drop your toaster oven into the bathtub, right? Water is a conductor of electricity. It's not a great conductor of electricity. Again, it can be dangerous, but it's not as good a conductor as what you think. Salt water, though, is a much better conductor. There are free, that sodium that's in the water allows for salt water to conduct better, right? And then to contain it, right, an insulator, insulators that prevent the flow of electricity, rubber, plastic, ceramic, glass, silicone, dry wood. Now wet wood conducts electricity. Cloth, right? So fibers, right? And then dry air, right? Dry air is the best common insulator that there is. Dry air, if you think about it, if dry air conducted electricity, we would be getting electrocuted all the time. Every time you got anywhere near a wall outlet, the electricity would just zap across you like static or lightning. Dry air is the best common insulator. Let's take a little look at, wire. Wire is essentially a conductor that is then surrounded by an insulator to protect us, right? So building wire has got copper wire in the middle and an outside jacket. This is feeder cable and it's really big, right? But you can look at all of the copper that's in the middle and it's surrounded by a rubber jacket. And a power cord to your toaster oven or a drill or your refrigerator or anything, right? Anything that you plug in, your laptop, right, has wire on the inside, right? Conductors on the inside, the copper, surrounded by insulators. And then all of the insulators are bound by a jacket. So that's a little bit about electron flow.